Hey there, and welcome to That News You Care About, a weekly video game news show from the folks over at That Nerdy Site. Today is Tuesday, January 11th, 2022, and I am one of your hosts, Logan Wilkinson. Joining me this week, as always, is my Phoenix Sun in person, Trevor Starkey.
I mean, I'm always here. You're
I know,
you're the one
we're
new.
in, yeah, we're together.
We're in the same shot.
Yes, yeah.
Split up through the pixel
The
frames
glasses,
background on the
yes.
video version of the show.
Very
Yes,
exciting.
in person for this very special episode.
Yes, very special episode. I flew all the way out just to do this episode. Our very special episode of the most anticipated games of 2022 for myself and Trevor. Trevor.
Yeah.
What are your most anticipated games of the year?
Let's go through. Typically, when we do this, we just go to the Game Informer article
exactly.
and just kind of start going through. Obviously, a whole bunch of the 2022 games don't have release dates yet.
Yes.
So, and who knows if some of those will actually hit. But starting in January, I do have Nobody Saves the World is a game I am excited for that comes out a week from today, January 18th. It's going to be on Game Pass. And this is the next game from Drinkbox Studios, the team behind Severed and the Guacamelee games.
Yeah, it's Guacamelee.
It has the potential. I played like the demo of it. I did a let's play of the demo on the site for one of our videos. And it's gonna be fun chaos. It would be a very fun co-op game to play with you, but you do not have Xbox. So
who knows what I might. I guess I won't get one in the next week. But
probably not in the next week. But
fair enough.
but yeah, that's definitely one I'm looking forward to because I just always love what the Drinkbox team does. I
really agree. I love Drinkbox. Guacamelee, especially the first one, such a good video game.
Yeah,
hit like at such a perfect time.
Yeah. So yeah, that is probably the first one of this year that I'm looking forward to. I joked in the Let's Play the free demo that they like had for people to play the end of last year around the Game Awards was like it cut off basically like you go into the first boss fight and it's like thank you for playing the demo. I'm like, you're not even gonna let me finish the boss fight? What the hell, Drinkbox? Fine. So yeah, it just left me. They just left me wanting more.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Gonna hop into that one next week. I don't think I have anything else in.
I don't have anything in January.
I'm not a Pokemon person anymore,
Nope.
So Pokemon Legends Arceus doesn't do anything for me. We were talking a little bit before we started recording Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection. Yeah. If you've not played Uncharted 4 or
Definitely
Lost Legacy, definitely check those out.
Yes.
But yeah, that's I probably will not bother hopping into those again just to play through them on PS5.
Yeah, and then we're in February, right? Like I'm not gonna get it, but a shout out to Life is Strange Remastered Collection.
I'm tempted to after my love of True Colors this last year and hopping into the Before the Storm. I'm like the combination of those was like I should revisit the first Life is Strange game.
It's really good.
So yeah, I'm probably gonna check those out, pick them up, and play through Life is Strange, the Life is Strange 1 and Before the Storm in remastered form.
And then we get to Dying Light 2, which is my first big anticipated game of the year. If you'd watched last episode, it was also mentioned there as well. Dying Light 2 is a weird one. I feel like it is one of those games where the lack of noise around it has like scared me a little bit. I think the fact that like no one's talking about it, it just sort of feels like the inverse of what happened with the Dying Light 1, which kind of helped set the pattern for, these kind of January releases that do really well. And Dying Light 2 is in a super crowded and busy February. And I think they're doing like everything they can to make this game sound less appealing to certain kinds of people. The 500 hours of like to finish everything in the game is not what you want to hear. No matter how they walk that back, right? There's only so much you can do. But the central premise and idea of Dying Light 2, I still find really, really fascinating as someone who loved the first Dying Light. Again, that was my game of the year back in 2015. Right? And if it can play out in that kind of almost Fallout New Vegas kind of style way where your actions and lack of actions have repercussions that affect the environment and the world around you and the alliances you can form and the way people interact with you, that's all super engaging and fun, right? And if that parkour system is still there, right, like the nighttime sequence is still being terrifying, and hopefully they really go back to focusing on the parkour, because in the DLC they did for the first Dying Light, they veered more into combat, more into like vehicle combat stuff. It didn't really work as well, I think. Then Dying Light 2 can be a game that can hit really well and can really work for me and can really be super interesting and engaging. And that's what I'm hoping for, right? Like, it is the first big game I will play this year, that I'm excited to dive into. And as I kind of look through like the big February stuff, it's pretty much that and Wonder the game that are going to be the first like 2-3 months of the year for me.
Yeah, that one. There were a lot of previews that came out like around Thanksgiving, and I feel like the timing of that also kind of like left the the traction on the game a little kind of drowned out, because it was basically like a whole bunch of people got to play like 4 hours of the game, and then everybody went on Thanksgiving break, and then like Game Awards happened, and then the holiday time, and so yeah, them now coming back in with like 500 hours, and then having to kind of walk back and be like, oh, we didn't mean to scare you off of it. It's just there's 500 hours of goodness in this game if you really want to see everything. Is definitely a weird vibe. It's definitely not my kind of game, as
Sure.
Much like Resident Evil Village last year. It's a good like beginning of the year spot for those kinds of games for you guys. I know like Cam's gonna be very excited about that one too.
Frank too, I think.
But yeah, it's just not my cup of tea. But shout out to friends that are working on that game, and I hope the game turns out very well for
Absolutely,
everybody. 100%. Pretty sure we've seen something that, like, I'm pretty sure it's gone gold and stuff, so shouldn't be sliding off of that February 4th date and at this point. The next one for me here in February is coming out a few days later, and that's the Sifu game. That's the one where it's like a brawler, but every time you die, your character ages up. And every time they've kind of shown this game off, I'm like, oh, that's like intriguing. I don't know if it's going to be like my cup of tea, but it definitely has caught my eye enough that I'll want to give it a shot. Especially if word of mouth on it ends up being really good. That's definitely like kind of in my my chamber of like, oh, check it out. It's like it's been on the PlayStation stage a couple times in terms of their state of plays and stuff. So they're clearly putting their resources behind it and believe in it. So I'm hopeful that it's a solid run. So yeah, that's my first one of February, and then I'm guessing both of us, the next big one of February is going to be Horizon Forbidden West. There, February 18th.
Definitely.
Yep. Horizon Zero Dawn was my game of the year in 2017, the year it came out.
That's right. Yeah, it was for you.
So I'm very much excited for this. I'm sad it missed kind of the launch window of the PlayStation 5, and out a year plus now. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Everything they've shown off it is just like cool. Just give me more. Just give me more Horizon. I'm so here for it.
I'm excited for it too, because as someone who did have issues with Aloy's character for probably the first 2 acts of that game, then really kind of started to vibe with her as the game kind of hit that last act stride. I'm excited to hopefully carry forward that momentum, right? And have kind of the parts I didn't like with her have been a bit more, sanded off and kind of figured out, and then kind of have her just ready to go from the jump as a character I really love and really am down to spend 50 hours with, whatever it might be. The location is great. Obviously, we are each fans of the Bay Area. And then I think what they've shown in terms of like the underwater portions of that game, right? And the new kind of creatures you're going to be interacting with all have me super, super excited, right? As someone who also really liked Horizon Zero West, or Horizon Zero Dawn, if it wasn't my game of the year, was still my top 5 for sure. I'm very curious and excited to see what they do with this. And I think it is easily one of my most anticipated games of 2022.
Yeah. It's not going to be for either of us, but for those that it is, shout out to Elden Ring. And that diehard fan base. I'm sure Cam's going to say those
Cam,
and check that one out. So yeah, shout out, and I'm very excited for just people to stop like
talking
being
about
like Elden Ring is the second coming. It will be here, and people can play it, and then then we just have to wait for the rest of the year until it's out of the Game of the Year conversation stuff. But yes, Elden Ring, for those that are excited for that one, good for them.
Yeah.
It takes us into March.
Mm-hmm.
I think I probably have the first one here in March, I'm guessing.
I guarantee you do.
Triangle Strategy. This is much like Project Octopath Traveler that was given that name and then just turned into Octopath Traveler. Project Triangle Strategy came out like with a demo a couple years ago, and people were like, all right, so that game's just going to be called Triangle Strategy. Sure enough, Triangle Strategy is it's basically it's Octopath Traveler plus Final Fantasy Tactics, like that kind of tactics gameplay, along with like, you know, the decisions you make, and the way you kind of like get your team to align either behind you or you know, against you, changes how the battles can play out. Like you can basically like discuss, hey, this is, I think, the strategy we should employ going into this battle, and if you can get like enough people on your team, like your party will go along with that, and they're all like making little votes, hence the like the triangle bit is like scales on something or whatever. I don't remember what the thing is. It's been a while since I played the demo now, but like in the demo I remember playing, it was like, well, we can evacuate the town because we can use the town like as we can booby trap the town to hold off like the advancing forces, or we can try and do this like on our own and probably take more casualties and stuff. And so like people were like, we don't want to burn our homes, but like we got enough people on board that it was like, okay, we triggered a house and it blew up and took out like 5 enemies with it or something like that. And I was like, yes, that worked perfectly. But yes, sorry that you guys are losing your home. We'll work to like reimburse or like compensate for you and kind of stuff. And so like that aspect of how that continues to play out over the course of the game is something that like intrigues me, certainly. But also I've just been like a sucker and very interested in getting a Final Fantasy Tactics-esque game again for a long time. So that's why Triangle Strategy has me interested. I have like, as a Final Fantasy person, I feel like I should have interest in Chocobo GP, which is basically the Final Fantasy like Mario Kart game. I probably will not though.
Sure.
Just because I'm not enough of a kart racer, but shout out to that existing. Same for Strangers of Paradise. I'm not interested in Final Fantasy plus Souls. I tried the demo of that did not hit for me. What about Tiny Tina's Wonderlands? Where are you at on that one?
I was just looking into this. I would say I'm neutral. This can be a little bit like a Guardians of the Galaxy situation where like I get really maybe sold on it afterwards if it gets like a good buzz and people kind of really like it. Right now I have pretty much no sort of expectations of really spending too much time with it otherwise.
It's one like I have limited expectations in like the quality of the game, but it is one that I think could potentially be fun, like for you and me to hop into, like we did with Borderlands 3.
Oh yeah,
you know, years ago,
in
our Game of the Year in 2019, in
Never
the lead
forget.
up to kind of the launch of that nerdy site. As a potential like, oh, let's just hang out like weekly and shoot the shit and stuff. Except we do that on like many podcasts now, so maybe we don't need that outlet anymore.
It could be great though. It could be like It Takes Two though, right? That kind of just experience.
We could definitely turn it now that we do Let's Plays every Tuesday and Thursday.
We have content.
We could just turn it into the content. Yeah, exactly. I can just boot us up and record it, and we'll just go from there. So that's why that one is like potentially on my list.
Totally.
It's just kind of like it's again, I'm not expecting like, oh, this is gonna be like Game of the Year contender at the end.
Who knows?
Could surprise us.
Who knows?
Like Borderlands 3 did, but I appreciate that. Like this one, obviously going to have Ashley Birch. Also has like Andy Samberg's in the cast. Will Arnett.
Rad. Okay, rad.
So it's got a good voice cast behind it as well. That I think has the potential to be some extra fun for it. So yeah, and it also is building on the like tabletop RPG that was like Tiny Tina's like Escape from Dungeon Keep or whatever it was in Borderlands 2, which is like their big renowned. It's continuing that like bunkers and badasses kind of like, let's just go nuts and have fun with like the mythology, but throwing guns into everything.
Sure.
So I think it has the potential to be fun. Whether or not it'll succeed, who knows? But
right.
Worst case, it could be a fun thing to hop in and play with friends.
I agree. I have nothing for April.
Yeah,
there's only 2 games listed,
exactly.
to be fair, right now.
Yeah,
but
one of them, 13 Sentinels. Shout out to Cameron.
I was gonna say
that game came out in 2020 and was one of Cam's Game of the Years that year. This is it's finally coming to Switch.
Mhm.
And then the Stalker, like I remember they showed off Stalker 2: Hardened Chernobyl in like one of the first like Xbox showcase events for this generation, and was like, nope, not for me, not my kind of thing. But shout out
that
to
is not a
people who are
Tourist
looking for
Darky
that.
series.
Yeah. In May, I will give a shout out to Forspoken.
Oh, we're gonna give different shout outs then.
Because that's the potential I have for
Mhm.
May would be Forspoken. That's the one Gary Whitta's working on, kind of the writing team for. And that's the one where like this modern girl from New York kind of gets thrust into the mystical landscape. It's very much like, I'm curious to see how it plays out, because it could very easily go badly, or it could very easily be not my kind of like action game, depending on what they end up doing with it. So I'm like tentatively interested in that one. What's yours in May there?
I was gonna give a shout out to Vampire the Masquerade Swan Song.
Okay.
Again, every year has got to have its patented horror game that really sinks its teeth into me now since 2017 and Resident Evil 7. I think it looks like a pretty standard horror game, but in a year that is pretty bereft of them otherwise, I think.
Unless you get Ghostwire Tokyo.
Little tease for you. Yeah, I think it could be fun, right? And very stylish, so I like that.
Yeah.
And then we jump 2 months, right?
Yeah. Because 3. Because nothing in June, nothing in July. Like, again, it's early beginning of the year.
It is January 11th.
Things are not dated yet.
Yeah.
For a lot of this, so a lot of the stuff is just sitting in the like TBD
It's
section.
gonna be the long section.
But Saints Row has put the claim to August 23rd. I'm
not gonna play Saints Row.
I'm probably not gonna check out this Saints Row. Nope. I checked out Saints Row 3 and 4.
Did you really?
Back on like the PS3, was it? Or no, it was probably early PS4.
Oh wow!
I checked out those games, and the PS4 one was like the remaster from the PS3 version, and just broke so many times, and I was like, this should really be running better.
Yeah.
And it was a dumb, mindless game to play through for a handful of hours or whatever, and dumb fun or whatever. I'm curious, who this reboot of the series is for, because it seems like it's taking out the things that people love about Saints Row,
sure,
in favor of a more just kind of generic shootery kind of thing. But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
It's coming,
but yeah, it's not one I'm particularly like stoked for.
I'm not gonna play it. I don't have anything for the rest of the year technically.
Yeah, the last one I have that's like not in TBA will be Starfield. As a fan of the Bethesda action RPG games, like your Skyrims, your Fallouts, Starfield is one that's definitely been on my radar for a long time.
Yeah.
The fact that I'll be able to play it on Game Pass day one, at no extra charge, assuming it hits, that'll probably be like that'll suck up a lot of my time at the end of the year, just like Fallout did before it and stuff like that. So yeah, that's my last one of the games that have dates.
And then we're in the to be announced section.
Yeah. First one I'll give a shout out to up in the A's. I gave a shout out to last time we did one of these in like games you're most excited for the rest of 2021. And then it got pushed out of 2021. And that was Advanced Wars 1 and 2.
Yeah.
The reboot camp for the Switch. That got delayed, so it's still one that I'm eager to check out when it finally comes out. If I can be bothered to dust off my Switch, because it has been a while.
Jazz Foster still has my Switch, so I should get that back at some point. My first one, I'll give a shout out to A Plague Tale Requiem. I still want to play A Plague Tale. It's a game, from what I've heard and seen, I would really vibe with, but I haven't yet, so it's just sort of a shout out that will maybe or maybe not happen. For me, I would probably. I might not have anything until we get to.
Let's go scrolling down a ways.
Yeah, until like the F's or G's.
Let's circle back up then for me.
Yeah.
Bear and Breakfast is one that I think's gonna be potential fun, like little management sim kind of game.
Are you a bear that runs a bed and breakfast?
Yep, you are a bear that runs a bed and breakfast.
Not my first time.
Yeah. None of the Destiny stuff. Nope. Dune Spice Wars. I'm intrigued by.
Is it just like the actual Dune movie?
It's
like set in the same.
It's Dune. I mean, Dune was notoriously like one of the earliest real-time strategy games, and this is seemingly like a an updated kind of remastered idea of that. So it's a Dune, but it's a real-time strategy game. And I'm occasionally down for hopping in and checking out an interesting one, especially now that I really enjoyed Dune last year.
Sure,
it's definitely something that I am potentially intrigued by. But yeah, so yeah, so where do we get to your first one then?
My first one's going to be Ghostwire Tokyo for sure. 5 sure. Yeah, I mean, I think from the first opening seconds of when we saw Ghostwire Tokyo initially, I was basically on it hook, line, and sinker. I think it looks really, really great. And like, I would be so much where like I'd be surprised if this game doesn't end up in my top 10 for the year. I think just like Resident Evil 7 and Village, just like whatever I had in 2020. I'm sure there's this horror game in there somewhere.
Resident Evil 2?
Oh yeah, Resident Evil 2 remake, right? In 2019 was my game of the year, actually. Right. So yeah, I mean, I think it's very much gonna hit that same vein. I think I'm extra excited about it for the fact that it is set not in America, that it is in a really cool location to, I think, have a horror game take place in, obviously in Tokyo. And there's so much they can do there, incorporating the kind of mythology it seems like they're going to incorporate. I'm really excited for that game, and it is one of those games that I've had my eye on for a couple of years now, I guess, at this point. And I'm excited to kind of see, hopefully, actually come out in 2022 and then dive into it.
Yeah, it's definitely not nowhere on my list.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm very intrigued to see if it actually comes out this year, because that's another one that, like, I remember that one got announced, and then like within a few months, the creative director had left the studio and kind of stuff. So it's like, okay, how did that impact the game? Obviously, that plus the pandemic. We're here a couple years later, and still it has not come out. But yeah, that's just another one like Deathloop this last year, where it's going to be like, oh, it's very weird that a Microsoft studio is going to be releasing like a PlayStation exclusive game. There you go. Right under that, we have God of War Ragnarok. Whether or not that comes out this year, I don't know.
We're optimistic.
I'm hopeful, certainly, and I think the last rumors had it pegged for like September timeframe. So hopefully it comes out. But yeah, that's certainly up there, and of course my most anticipated as the follow up to my favorite game
of all time. Yeah,
I especially appreciate. Well, they didn't, or when they did kind of show off like the trailer of it last year, in the kind of the talk back Q&A kind of thing that they had afterwards. They've specified that this is like the end of the like Norse saga kind of thing. So they're not doing a trilogy of this. They're saying, hey, like we have 2 games here for Kratos in the Norse mythology. So I'll be very curious to see kind of how this story wraps up and ends. So yeah, shout out to that one.
Absolutely.
I think this next one's on both of our lists. Goodbye Volcano High.
100%. Absolutely.
This one I've been like, I was very sad that we just didn't get more of it, any more of it last year. Because when they kind of had that introduction in the intro to the PS5 showcase, back in 20 what was that, 2019 2020 summer of 2020. It was like, oh, that looks really cool. And then it's gone largely dark since then. But I'm very excited for that one. I'm pretty sure that's another one our friends over at Pop Agenda are
Yep.
working on. So they always pick great projects to collaborate with.
That
so.
is actually one of my most anticipated games of the year. I'm so excited. Like that seems like the exact kind of like story based game that I'm all in for. I'm very excited to see that hopefully come out this year.
Same. Where are you falling on Gotham Knights?
Yeah, it's weird. I feel like people aren't talking about it. I think I'm largely excited about it, right? Like I do think I'm gonna check it out and play it. I am maybe more excited for this than Suicide Squad. Although I kind of go back and forth on that a bit, right? Like if ultimately it is just the Arkham games just with these four characters and kind of switching between them, I'm here for that, right? Like I don't think it's gonna hit as hard as Arkham Asylum or Arkham City, which is one of my favorite games of all time, did. But I still think if it's like of the, way I feel about Arkham Origins, for example, I'm down to get another one of those kind of games, right? I'm down to spend more time in that world and with these characters, right? As someone who loves Gotham and Batman, right? It's my favorite superhero kind of universe. So I'm optimistic. I'm always here for more Nightwing and anything. So I'm gonna check it out. I'm hopeful. I'm a little worried, obviously, that it seems like no one's just talking about it in general, that it might just kind of get forgotten a little bit, but I'm excited to check it out.
There's a lot of games nobody's talking about because they haven't been able to do preview events and stuff like that largely, or if they do, they're very cherry picked and it's like, oh, we're doing this digitally or whatever. This one, the thing I'm most wary about on Gotham Knights is I don't know how interested I am in playing a Batman game or a Batman game without Batman.
Do you think he's not actually going to be in the game at all, though?
I mean, even if he's in the game, like you're not playing as him, you're playing as like the Bat family. So I'm not like that just doesn't intrigue me. I don't have the connection to the rest of the Bat family to
Nightwing for life.
to care that much about it. And it's also the idea of like, oh, it's you can play it single player, but there's also like the co-op nature of it. I'm like, it's very hard to pull that off and to like make it a co-op game that you've clearly intended for co-op and make it a good single player experience. So I'm wary on that front too. It's one that like honestly I'm kind of like, I don't know if I'm like if word of mouth is really good on it, I'll maybe I'll put some time into it. But I did because everything kind of has pointed to that it's going to be like the Court of Owls storyline or whatever. I sat down and read the Court of Owls storyline, was like kind of underwhelmed. Like when I actually like sat down with it, maybe it was just because it's been built up by hype for years. But yeah, so like reading that, I was like, okay, well, also I have zero idea how this story will work without Batman. So I'm very like, I'm intrigued, but I don't know if I'm like excited for that one.
I think that's fair, right? I think Batman is obviously an important part of the Batman stories and universe. I'm hopeful they can pull it off. If nothing else, again, like I said, I'm just here for any excuse to be Dick Grayson in anything. So I'm hopeful for that.
Yeah. Next on the list, you actually made a prediction is not actually going to come out this year. That is Hogwarts Legacy. If it does come out this year, you still excited for that one with all of the like Harry Potter controversy and stuff in recent years?
Yeah, it's interesting. We had a whole podcast about this on something I think last year, or I guess 2 years ago now. I mean, I am, right? Like I still plan on playing Hogwarts Legacy and hopefully enjoying it, right? Like I love that universe, that world, and those characters. And I'm not gonna let JK ruin that for me. And I think they've made pains to make clear how little involved she is with the game. I think the fact that it's set in a different time period than the kind of Harry Potter saga is really interesting. It allows for like really cool story things to happen and play out. And so yeah, right. Like I've talked before about the fact that one of my dream give me like I was gonna say $1 million, give me $100 million to make a video game maybe. What are you gonna do with it, right? And it would be a 7-year like Hogwarts simulator kind of thing. and this is sort of giving me a little bit of taste of that. And so, if it is bully but at Hogwarts, that's all I've ever wanted for 20 plus years at this point now. And so I'd be totally down for that if it is going to classes and going to Hogsmeade and making potions and having friendships, and then in between that doing cool magic stuff outside of that and having the baddie that you're fighting against. I'm down for all of those aspects of it, and seeing what the world of Hogwarts looks like in the 1800s as opposed to obviously modern times. I think it's ripe for really cool things to happen with it. And yeah, I mean, I am excited. I am not that optimistic about it coming out this year. But I would be really excited and really stoked if it did. And I think it'd be a cool one to, sink some serious time into.
Yeah, this is another one. Like I just don't know how interested I am, and I guess part of it is like I don't know what the gameplay of
We don't know very much
being
about
a
it at
wizard is
all.
going
Yeah.
to be like, and how engaging, and how like
Mhm.
is it going to be like third person shooter kind of game where you're using your wand to
As
cast
like,
spells or something like
yeah,
that.
that's what I think.
And I'm wary of how that ultimately will kind of play out. And yeah, also like what is a story of Hogwarts 100 years ago gonna look like, or 150 years ago, whatever it is, how's that gonna play out? It's another one like I'll kind of gauge based on like word of mouth when it actually comes
Mhm.
out, and if people are really seeming into it, then I'll give it a shot. But other than that, I'm just kind of like, or I could just not.
Mhm.
If I really want to, I can always go back and play the Lego Harry Potter games. Enjoy those.
Funny you say that. Yeah.
But yeah, as speaking of, next one certainly probably on my list there is Lego Star Wars:
Yep.
The Skywalker Saga.
Yep.
Which I've had pre-ordered, as I was saying to you before we started recording, since like July of 2020, I guess. And just kind of keep waiting for it, and like I'm a sucker for the Lego
We
games.
each love them. Yeah.
And the Skywalker Saga, like as somebody who played like the Force Awakens Lego game, which I was like annoyed at the time because I'm like, the last two Lego Star Wars games were entire trilogies, and you guys are just milking one game out of this, and then they just didn't do it for Last Jedi or Rise of Skywalker. I'm like, well, I'm extremely curious to see how those two like play out, but then I'm also like fully anticipating like the typical DLC levels they do will be like, I'm sure there's going to be like a Mandalorian level or something like that. And getting to play as like baby Grogu as like a a side character or whatever, collectible character in this game. I think it'll be just a ton of fun.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this is one I've been
The Lego games are all fantastic.
waiting for a long time. I would be very curious, especially to see how they change it up compared to like the original, because obviously the original ones came out. God, they've been like about 20 years ago, because it was right. First one launched right before Episode 3 in 2005. Yeah. And so that would be very interesting to see how like as that studio and the like the ideas and the
team have evolved,
the games have kind of grown and changed over years, to see how like far it has come since those very first ones.
Same for this is why we need a Lego Indiana Jones remaster as well. Put it out.
Yeah,
those games are so good too. Like the Lego games and the level of detail, I think, and Easter eggs and secrets and just like fan servicey things they're able to do with those are incredible. Like they're such a treasure trove if you love the stories that they're telling.
Yeah, still got all my Lego Dimensions things right here behind me. So, shout out to that.
Always.
I'll give a shout out here. I don't know what your next one is, but I'll give a little double shout out here to Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope and Marvel's Midnight Suns.
Oh,
because both of those are going to be in like the XCOM genre, but just wildly different. Obviously, like Mario plus Rabbids was like a delightful surprise, the Kingdom Battle one, this being kind of the follow up to that, and then Marvel's Midnight Suns being like the same idea but with Marvel characters, is certainly interesting, ones that I am curious about, depending like and then just depending on like when they actually come out, will probably be a large gauge of like whether or not I actually sit down and spend some time with them. But kind of definitely keeping an eye on those two. Open Roads be your next one?
I'll give a shout out to Necro Barista
Okay.
for the PS4. I played it at PAX 2020 or PAX West 2019, maybe even as well. And I think that it is a really, really cool idea, right? As someone who just doesn't play PC games with very few exceptions, I obviously am kind of waiting for the console release. But if the like half-hour long demo I played at PAX turns into like the whole experience, it's super interesting. And it's one I think that Cameron would really enjoy as well. And maybe even Frank could be like really get into that kind of style game and the way that they tell the story and kind of what they're doing with the characters.
Cool. Yeah, I know virtually nothing about that one, so yeah. Well then, Open Roads.
Yes, and then it's gonna be Open Roads.
Yeah.
From Fulbright. Yeah, I mean, I'm someone who really loves Fulbright games. In particular, Gone Home. Obviously, Tacoma had a few more issues with it, but still enjoyed it. And everything I've seen from Open Roads has me so excited and thinking it's gonna be such a great kind of return to form for them. And then, obviously, as we went into repeatedly on this very show, everything involving Steve Gaynor just kind of, I think, sucked so much out of the sales.
Puts a damper.
Yeah, which is unfortunate for the team behind that. That is kind of continuing forward to finish up this game. I hope it's great. I hope they're able to do something really good and show that they can kind of do something without Steve there. But yeah, I don't know. It's a kind of, it has just gotten infinitely more messy, unfortunately. But what we've seen in the kind of teases have me so excited for it.
Yeah, I don't remember who's attached to that one, but it's basically like a mom and daughter kind of road trip one,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And both the actors I remember being like, oh, like those are
names,
high quality people behind that. So
look right now.
So yeah, that one's almost certainly going to be a good one. While you're looking that up, I will give a shout out to Oxenfree 2, Lost Signals.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Oxenfree, one of my favorite games the year it came out, and I bought it. I bought it again on PlayStation when it came out there, and I think I also bought it on Switch too, just to support that team, the team over at Night Schoolers. Very eager and interested to see kind of what this sequel looks like. And I remember that when that got announced, I was like, oh, that's awesome that they're going back to kind of that idea and that island and stuff.
Mom is Carrie Russell, and the daughter is Caitlin Deaver.
Oh yeah, there we go.
From Booksmart and Unbelievable.
I was gonna guess Caitlin Dever, because I was like, I feel like after watching Dear Evan Hansen, I was like, I feel like she's in that too.
Is she in Dear Evan Hansen?
Yeah, she's the girlfriend, the sister character in Dear Evan Hansen.
Played against Ben Platt.
Yep.
There's like a 20-year age difference between those two, right?
I mean, like it's like a 10 years or whatever, but no, I guess because he's like 28.
Is he really?
Yeah,
that man looks like he's 40 years old.
Yeah, no, it's still not great, but I mean, she's probably early 20s. So like she plays younger, but yes, there was definitely an odd thing there as well. But no, she's great, and yeah, she was especially in like Booksmart and stuff like that. She also I've not seen it, but I've heard great things about her in Dope Sick too.
Yeah, Dope Sick in general, I've heard a lot of good stuff about.
So yeah, shout out to them in Open Roads and Carrie Russell.
Carrie Russell.
She's awesome.
Oh, I did want to also just shout on to Oxenfree as well. Obviously, Oxenfree was one of my favorite games the year it came out and just totally blew me away. I think what that game did with the story and those characters is so trippy and so smart and so clever, and it is actually a little bit like The Last of Us, a game that I didn't necessarily want a sequel to even, but now that I know it's happening, I'm so excited to see what they do and kind of the continuation of that story and those gameplay mechanics, and what they were kind of able to set up in the first one, because it was such a special and incredible video game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Next one I'll shout out. I do not think at all it is going to come out this year, but I will shout out Redfall because it's on this list. That is next game coming from Arcane that got announced at Xbox's E3 thing last year. It was their one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I have almost no confidence of that actually being a 2022 game. But if it does come out, I'm here for it, because Arcane, they do great stuff.
I will give a shout out to the Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake.
Uh-huh.
I, as we talked about before we started recording this, I thought it had come out last year already, and I had missed it, but I have not, which is exciting. This is the only Prince of Persia game I'd ever played. I really enjoyed it. If it comes out and it gets the same kind of level of polish that like the Tony Hawk Pro Skater remakes did, or I think is like a benchmark for remakes now. Or the Mass Effect Legacy Edition.
And that's the problem. I think this is going to get more of the Grand Theft Auto definitive remake.
And so that's I think
treatment.
You see that a little bit in the fact that we each thought it came out last year, but if it doesn't, I'm excited to check that one out a little bit and dive into a little bit. I'm not like a Tim Geddes style Prince of Persia fan, but I do love the series, and this game in particular.
I mean, yeah, like that game I liked, and yeah, it'd be fun to like go back and play that one again if it like holds up, or if they can make it so it holds up now in 2022. But I don't necessarily know. Like it strikes me more as like
we are not optimists.
Quick cash grab on the name recognition of that game, as opposed to it them actually, like, it seems like a minimum viable product is what they're gonna put in as much as they can to get as or as little as they can to get the most out of it, is what I kind of anticipate on that. Well, the next one I will shout out is RPG Time: The Legend of Wright. This is one I shouted out last time we did one of these, because the art style of this game just looks batshit crazy, as if it is it's an RPG played in like a kid's notebook kind of thing, and there's so many different seemingly gameplay styles and ideas behind it that I'm just very excited for it. It's kind of like some Paper Mario vibes, but then just kind of like they go nuts with it. So very curious to see more of that when it comes out. I also want to give a shout out to Sea of Stars. Admittedly, I backed this on Kickstarter, and late last year I backed at a level where it's like there's going to be like a statue of me in the game, and I sent them like the kind of the instructions of like, here's what I kind of want that statue to look like if you guys can do this, if you guys can manage this stuff. So yeah, I'm excited for that whenever it comes out. That's the team behind The Messenger, doing a Chrono Trigger-esque kind of game, with kind of the retro art style, of course. So just super excited for whatever Sabotage ends up putting out on that one. I'm in the Discord, and I occasionally get like pinged on like, here's some stuff we're showing off or whatever, and I just kind of have largely like tried to kind of stay dark on it, so much so like I think the only thing I've really seen recently is they had in one of the most recent like Nintendo Indie World things, I think they had like a little trailer for Sea of Stars, and I was like, yes please, that game's just looking really good. So very excited for that one when it comes out.
I don't have anything until Suicide Squad.
Yeah, let's hop into right above that. I'll give a shout out to Stray, which is the PS5 game where you play as a cat. It's like cat plus Uncharted, in what they showed kind of in I think the last gameplay, where it's like, oh yeah, that looks weird in terms of like platforming around and stuff as this cat. So I'm very interested. That's another one, like Sufi earlier, that I think PlayStation's putting a lot of like weight behind and marketing power behind, to the point where I'm like, okay, well, they clearly believe in it, so I think it has the potential to be something really cool and special.
A game where you play as a cat is the kind of game that Shravya Sanagala is here for. That's exactly how you get her into video games.
There you go.
Yeah, and then we're down to Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. Just like with Gotham Knights, I'm excited for this one. I just love the Batman universe. I'm pretty much here for anything in that, typically. If anything, the thing that I'm least excited about with this game is the fact that it's subtitled to Kill the Justice League. I can see that being the part that I find the least enjoyable about this game, especially depending on like how serious they go into that and how much that is actually just what you're trying to do is just taking the Justice League. But it's fun characters. It's going to be definitely more kind of goofy, silly take on it than Gotham Knights is or any of the Arkham games. And so I'm excited for that. Maybe it'll be a little bit like the kind of Harley Quinn now on HBO Max show. And yeah, I'm here for that kind of style of Batman game as well.
Yeah, I'm the last trailer we got of this that kind of
It was them in the Flash, right?
It was them against the Flash,
Yep.
but there's like a lot of like if you do like the freeze framing stuff in it, it seems pretty clear that like Wonder Woman is also not kind of bewitched by Brainiac. So you're largely fighting alongside Wonder Woman. And so I'm guessing she's going to have some strong feelings about killing her colleagues. And so you're probably going to end up teaming up with Wonder Woman to kind of, disagree with Amanda Waller's orders, as is often the case in these kinds of stories, and basically become the anti-heroes, but in a largely heroic way kind of thing. And then it'll probably be like at the end, like Wonder Woman takes the credit and the Suicide Squad gets like no fame or fortune on this or anything, as you save Batman and Superman, and the Flash and Green Lantern, all them. So I of the two of this and Gotham Knights, I'm more interested in this one, just because it seems like a more wild potential.
Sure.
And also not having played a proper Rocksteady game since Arkham Knight, not counting the Arkham VR game. It'll be interesting to kind of see what they do outside of Batman specific and outside of Arkham, because this obviously seems to, because the other thing is like it had the Penguin from the Arkham games in there kind of talking to your Suicide Squad members, so like it seems like a continuation of the Arkham saga,
or at the very least taking place in that world.
So it'll be very curious to see where that one goes.
Then it starts getting weird in the tease.
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to Chia, because that was the Moana like game that that's come up in a couple of state of plays and stuff. I think it has a cool little art style. You play as a girl that can kind of like seemingly push your consciousness into animals around the island or whatever. Kind of looks like a Breath of the Wild-esque kind of game like that, but it also seems to be kind of looking at Southeast Asian culture kind of stuff, so I'm intrigued by that. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge is a super throwback to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1 and 2 in the arcades. Very curious to see how that one plays out.
I feel like it's Legend of Zelda after that then.
Looking down. I mean, I'm not particularly excited for Legend of Zelda, but much like Elden Ring, sure. Shout that one out for the people that are excited for that one.
I would love to like Breath of the Wild too. Me and Trevor are obviously two of the internet's most noted critics of that. I think the first one, but I'm definitely hopeful, even if I don't think I will. I'm hopefully it clicks a bit better. And then after that, Lord of the Rings Gollum. I don't even know what this game is yet. We haven't really gotten any sort of information on it, but I'm definitely curious. Someone who just watched all these movies again. I think Gollum is a particularly hard character to do a video game on, I will say. I'm very intrigued by how long the game is, what the game is, what is the kind of gameplay combat systems, but if it's done well in that world, it could be really cool as a prequel to kind of obviously Lord of the Rings trilogy.
I'll give a shout out to the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
I was also looking at that.
Largely because this is a game that again was supposed to come out years ago, and has continually been delayed because it's Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. It's listed here as PC, but the thing is, it's supposed to be coming to console, and that's the definitive edition of this game. And he's just been working on it for a long time, and it just keeps getting pushed and delayed and stuff like that. And just I've heard so many good things about the Stanley Parable on PC, and I just continue to be like, well, it's supposed to be coming to console eventually, and that's my preferred place to play, so I'll wait until that happens. I also want to give a shout out to 2 Point Campus. I really liked the 2 Point Hospital game when that came out a couple years back. And it
Just
is
a college building sim.
it's a game in the spirit of like the theme park and theme hospital games of old is what 2 Point Hospital was. And this is it's that idea, but for a college
I
campus,
find that
kind
more
of
intriguing
university kind of thing. So
than a hospital one. So
yeah,
I could also potentially be interested in that.
yep. We Are OFK. I'm intrigued about, based on like the couple of like trailer things that they've kind of given for that. I don't know what the gameplay of that is so much as like, because they kind of have built it as like it's like a 5 episode making of a band kind of thing. And it'll be an interesting like music meets video game kind of thing. And I like Teddy Deef is they are one of the kind of leads behind it, and I like stuff that they've worked on in the past. So I'm intrigued by it, but yeah, I know like little enough about what the actual game there is going to be. But I think that's the last one I have here on the list.
Yeah, same. Unfortunately, no shout out for WWE 2K22.
No, that's going to be a very interesting game, because I don't know if you're familiar or you follow along with any of this stuff. WWE has like let go of most of their roster in the last year.
Yeah.
And so there are going to be a ton of people in this game that are no longer working with WWE. And yeah, that's just going to be wild. They took a year off because the last game, WWE 2K20, was so like just lambasted and bad. Yeah. We will see how that goes, but it's going to be a very interesting like, oh yep, you can play as all these wrestlers that don't like, there will probably, I would not be surprised if there are more wrestlers in that game that don't work for WWE anymore than the ones that are still around by the time that game comes out.
Sure. Yeah, those are our most anticipated games of the year, though.
So far
there will be more that are announced, I'm sure, more that pop up over time, and more that we discover. But otherwise, that is the show. The shout outs are basically, we're doing this together. You get us together. And otherwise, if you like what you heard, thank you for listening or watching. If you liked what you heard, you can go over to your podcast service around the globe and like and subscribe, rate and review us on iTunes, give us 5 stars, tell your friends why you liked us, and leave a comment. It really does help with the algorithms. Otherwise, you can go to youtube.com/thatnerdy site, check out all of the Let's Plays, podcasts, reviews occasionally that we have go live, as well as thatnerdysite.com. We can check out all the same things over there as well. Otherwise, you can go find Trevor at Trevor J. Starkey on the internet. Trevor, anything that you want to plug?
I will give a shout out to That Bond Show, which you can go catch out, a YouTube exclusive show on youtube.com/thatnerdysite.
That's right.
Where each week me and Logan here are going through all them Bond movies that Logan loves so dearly, and I'm tearing him to shreds and making him rethink his choices on things. But yeah, that's been a fun series. We've recorded a handful of episodes in the can. As of this episode going out, there are 2 available that you can go catch up. You can go catch the Dr. No episode, as well as the From Russia with Love. Goldfinger will be going live this Saturday, because this is a weekly Saturday show that we have going out there. So go check that out.
I will echo all of those shout outs. And we even just got a brand new book for the research purposes for James Bond as well. So yeah, go check out That Bond Show, the first 2 episodes, as well as the written reviews I've also done for the movies. And then I will also give a shout out to our giant mammoth Game of the Year podcast of That Nerdy Site show that we did. It is 4.5 hours long, and has kind of myself, Trevor, Cameron, and Frank all going through our top 10 video games of the year, plus honorable mentions, and then ranking and determining what That Nerdy Site's Game of the Year was. For the second year in a row, the site's Game of the Year was my Game of the Year. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Unlike in 2019. But go check all of that out. It was a really good conversation, I think. It was a lot of fun to just talk and gush about video games with everyone for 4+ hours. And stay tuned, I'm sure, to all sorts of Disney-based conversation that we'll be having in the not too soon future as well. Otherwise, you can go find That Nerdy Site at That Nerdy Site all across the internet. For myself, for Trevor, for all of us here in person at That Nerdy Site, play your games and be good to each other. Class dismissed.